Okay, Michael. Well, it's a pleasure to talk with you again
Yeah, man. Same here.
here at the Ossipee Valley Festival. So a lot's been going on lately, but I thought it might be fun to go back a couple of things from your early days
Okay.
to talk about. And one of them I was thinking of, you always mentioned this box of tapes that you got from Dave Samuelson.
Yep.
And I hadn't realized this when you mentioned it, but apparently those tapes he annotated or he commented on them, right?
He is a music historian. So I mean, all the Bear family box sets. A lot of times they would call Dave Samuelson to write liner notes for those, or to
okay.
figure out. Like I called Dave Samuelson one time and I said, "Hey, what are you up to?" He's like, "Oh man, I'm listening to this old Chet Atkins stuff. We're doing a Bear family box set for one of the like from the 50s to the 60s. There's a few Chet box sets, but he
Okay.
said this one version of the box set." There would be all these different versions of songs because Chet, when he was A&R at RCA, he would make a record, put it out, and then hear it on the radio, stop printing on the record, re-record it, and re-release it, the same song. So they were trying to figure out which versions were the actual first versions, and they called Dave Samuelson to do that. So that's the kind of, like, he knows so much about every kind of music, every style. Like, he's what you've heard about Eddie Stubbs, that's the same as this guy.
So, okay, so that was pretty fortunate then, because you not only got a set of recordings.
Oh yeah, I not only got all this music, but like he at the beginning of each side, he would tell me what, now this is going to be, a session with Chet Atkins, and this has got Bob Moore playing the bass, and it's got Dale Potter playing the fiddle, and pay attention to Dale Potter's fiddle playing, and he played all the double stops, and he would just point out stuff, Stefford Grappelli, Joe Benuti, Django, he sent all that stuff. He sent jazz, bluegrass, like old western swing stuff, like the Sons of the Pioneers, anything. And he would tell me before each side of the tape started, what the album was, who was playing on it, when it was recorded, and I mean, he just knows all that stuff. I mean, I could literally call this guy. I started a band later, a local band, and we made a couple of tapes, and I literally called him one time to get the writer publishing info on all these songs we cut, and he did it all by memory.
Wow.
I mean, that's the kind
amazing.
of guy,
Yeah.
But no, I was very fortunate too, and I think that's probably the reason that I'm so big into the history of the music and fiddle playing and why people play the way they do, is because he kind of drew my attention to that.
Yeah, so you were very sensitive right from the start of like who influenced whom and which licks came from which players and all of that.
Yeah, and he, I think, brought that more to my attention,
And okay, so that was kind of one thing from your background. Another one, you played on the Grand Ole Opry when you were 13, right? So you must have had nerves of steel.
Man, when I was 13, I wasn't scared of anything. I was too stupid to be scared of anything. I was really excited, of course. I was bouncing off the walls, but like now, if I were to think about it, like I think back on it now, I played on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry with Alison Krauss on Bill Monroe's segment of the Grand Ole Opry. Bill Monroe was there, and if I thought about that and maybe tried to do it now, I would freak out. But, being as young as I was, and I don't know, but it was definitely a dream come true for me, and I'll always be grateful to Alison Krauss for making that happen.
Yeah, was that a complete surprise when she invited you?
It really was. You know, we had went. I met her at IBMA when we did the Youth All Star thing, and then she played a show in New Albany, Indiana, which is not very far from me at all. Her and John Hartford were playing a show on the river, and we went and seen them. And I think my grandparents kind of said in passing, you know, that dream, you know, my dream to play the Grand Ole Opry or whatever. And then they made Alison a member shortly after that, and it was right after she became a member. She called the house, and I just got home from school on Friday, and she called the house, and I answered the phone. She said, "Hey, this is Alison." I said, "Alison who?" And she said, "Alison Krauss." I said, "Yeah, right." You know, I really thought somebody from school or something was messing with me, because I was the bluegrass kid, you know, in school. I was like the only kid that was into bluegrass. They, "Oh, you listen to Alison Krauss, you know, you listen to..." So I figured it was probably somebody messing with me, but then she said, "No, it's really Alison Krauss. We'd like you to, we want to invite you to come play the Opry." And it was a special day. I mean, my whole family pretty much went, you know.
Yeah, wow.
But
yeah,
no,
so,
I was just too amped up to be nervous.
Yeah, it's a great thing. So you talked about being in school and being the only kid that played bluegrass. This was Kentucky, right? So I'm surprised there weren't other people that were interested in bluegrass.
You know what? And that's the thing. A lot of people think Kentucky, and yeah, bluegrass comes from Kentucky, but I don't know. There are a lot of areas, even where we live in southern Indiana, I think bluegrass was a lot more popular, you know. But yeah, as far as at my school, like there was maybe one kid that knew what it was, and there was a dorm parent, superintendent of the dorms where we stayed, who was big into the Osborne brothers. He would follow the Bobby and Sonny around, and so he would talk. You know, we would talk about bluegrass, and he's the one that told me that Bill Monroe died. Remember I was in school, and it was '96, and yeah, he come out of his office, and me and this other kid were sitting around trying to play a little bit. He said, "Boys, I just want to tell you, Bill Monroe passed away." Wow. And man, you know, but he was pretty much the connection to bluegrass at school. Pretty much everybody else didn't know what we were talking about. A lot of people didn't really want me to play bluegrass because they had heard a bad example of it or whatever, which I understand. But
yes, they tried to talk you out of it, but didn't work, luckily.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, and so some of your first gigs were backing up like Dale and Bradley and Rhonda Vincent.
Right.
So you were learning, or you know, immediately exposed to trying to be a backup player, right? How do you back up a singer?
Yes.
Was that something new to you at that time?
It was very, well, I understood the theory of it. But, I mean, at that time, when I was 18, I was throwing every note, every lick, everything that I knew into every song and playing nonstop, constantly, you know?
Yeah.
And I was playing with Dale Ann, and Deanie Richardson is the one who told Dale Ann and Vicky about me, and I had met Deanie years before at some fiddle contests, and so she recommended me for the gig, you know. And she heard us playing on the Opry one night, and she called me and she said, "Hey, I just want to tell you, you're sounding really good with the band, but it's like Bill Monroe told me. I guess she was in a big jam on stage with Bill Monroe, you know, and I guess she was playing constantly, just nonstop, you know, and he said something to her like, "You can't play it all, little girl," you know. And so she said, you know, you need to let these other guys play backup every once in a while. But as far as backing up a singer, you know, I think it's not playing all the time. It's more, you know, like when you hear a singer sing a line, there'll be a hole in the middle of, you know, there'll be a pause between one line, where one line ends and the next one starts, and you're supposed to fill that space. But I try to. I mean, it's basically a supporting thing, you know. So you're backing up the soloist or the singer, whoever is the featured performer at that time.
Yes.
But
so were they coaching you at all as far as, you know, what worked or what didn't, you know?
no, I don't remember that because I mean I think at that time I did know a lot, you know, and I did understand the theory of backup. So it wasn't like I needed to learn how to play backup. I just needed to learn how to not play so much, you know, like, and playing in keys like A flat, E flat, C sharp, you know, for Dale Ann and Rhonda were definitely something that was something I had to work on. But, you know, like when I first started playing with Dale Ann, Randy Howard had played on one of her albums, and Robert Boland and Deanie Richardson and people were playing on the other album, so I had to learn all their breaks, and that was great for me, man, because it just, not only did I learn the breaks, but it just seemed like I learned so much, you know, just technical stuff just from having to learn the breaks. That was a big help to me. And then when I played with Rhonda, you know, Stuart Duncan and Ron Stewart, you know, had played on her albums, so I was learning all their stuff, you know, that they played, and that really helped a lot.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that at least I hear in your style is the way you accent things. You have a really nice way to punctuate phrases. To me, that's sort of one of the things that makes your playing so exciting. Is that something that you kind of worked on yourself, or did that just come naturally?
I think it's something that's kind of happened over time. I mean, when you say accenting thing, you know, I've always liked fiddle players or musicians in general that are, you know, according to what fits the song, obviously, but, you know, really aggressive players and people who can, who have dynamics, you know, dynamic players like, well, even, you know, like Vassar. We were talking about Vassar. Vassar didn't play hard at all. But like Jason Carter and I kind of come from the same school of fiddle playing. He's been a big influence on my playing, and we kind of approach it the same way, just kind of. But as far as bluegrass, you know, I like Kenny Baker's playing and Bobby Hicks, but I always also like to hear somebody like Eddie Stubbs or Tater Tate, you know, like Eddie wasn't a super technical player, but what he had was that aggression, you know. He had that bluegrass drive, you know, like when Paul Warren came in to play a solo, you knew it was happening. You were not gonna not hear Paul Warren. And Eddie Stubbs was the same way. He just had that energy to his playing. Whenever he came to play solo, it was just on. And Tater Tate was that way too. You know, so they weren't the smoothest players, maybe, but as far as drive and intensity, that's they had that for sure, and that's what I really like.
So you're really digging in when you're bowing.
Yeah, now I think I play lighter now than I ever have, because I used to play these carbon fiber bows, and they're good for what they are, but once I went and started playing some really good wood bows, man, I found I didn't have to play the hair as tight. I used to play the bow, I used to have the hair really tight on these carbon fiber bows, and I would play as hard as I could play. And man, now that I've gotten into these wood bows, I don't have to tighten it as much. I can play with a pretty loose bow, and I can play as hard as I need to play, and it's great because they sound better too. They really do. I used to think that whole bow thing was a gimmick, and I would say that. You know, I don't know why people spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a bow. You can get a carbon fiber bow, but there is a difference.
Interesting. So with those bows, you find you can get the same attack and not have to work as hard.
I can get more. I can get way more out of a wood bow, and I don't have to play it as tight, and I don't have to play as hard.
Yeah.
Which kind of blew my mind. It's like, man, I've been working to death for years and years and years.
So does that give you an opportunity now to work on new licks and new?
Oh yeah, always working on new licks.
Yeah. So how do you go about working on new licks? How do you do you hear? What do you listen to, and how do you kind of develop those new licks?
Well, you know, a lot of the stuff that I've learned here lately is just because of the stuff that I've been doing with Bela. I can't say that I've been listening to fiddle players exactly and trying to learn licks lately, but learning those songs that Bela plays has really pushed me in a way that I haven't been in a long time. And to get more familiar with those songs that are pretty complicated and play off, you know, like basically I try to, you know, I steal licks from everybody. It's not just fiddle players. Like I'll hear Brian Sutton play something on the guitar, or, you know, in our band I'll hear Josiah or Nathan play something, and I'll try to imitate that. But I listen to a lot of different things. I like to listen to good Telecaster players. I like to try and incorporate some of that stuff. I really like Jerry Reed's guitar playing. And I listen to a lot of 70s and 80s rock just because there's so much good guitar playing in that music. And I think some of the stuff I do is based off of that. And, you know, I mean, obviously it's always going to come back to Kenny Baker and Benny Martin and Bobby Hicks and Scotty Stoneman and all that. But, like, some of the ideas that I get aren't necessarily from fiddle players all the time.
But you have to somehow translate them onto the fiddle. It's not,
yeah.
I suppose it's not always straightforward.
Yeah, but if you can figure out, you know, like, which one thing that helps me is I can identify notes. Like I can hear a note, usually tell you what it is. And I can hear a guitar player play and, you know, tell, oh yeah, he's capoed at the 2nd fret, or he's playing in C position in the key of D, capoed at the 2nd fret, or he's playing in D position on the 4th fret, playing in F sharp. You know, I can hear stuff like that, which is a huge help when it comes to learning
Yeah. You still have to figure out how to phrase it on the fiddle, right?
Yeah.
Get it arranged, get the bowing the way you want it. I know a couple of things, like when you did your version of Jerusalem Ridge. There's the place where you play those chord chops, or some nice. You get I don't know, somewhere in there, where you have some nice up the neck chords that you put in there. Where did that come from? Do you remember?
I don't know. Trying to figure out which part you're talking about.
Yeah, towards the end of it, and then you've got that set of triplets that you put in, or with the short bows.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah, you want your fiddle?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right here behind you. I'll give it.
Oh, I got you. So is it this kind of thing? So there's some triplets, and then there's double stop things.
Yeah,
but,
which are like not things you usually hear with that song, but they work great.
That thing?
Yeah. Yeah, what was that?
Or are you talking about the double stops?
Well, both of those things, yeah. That was a double stop.
I don't know where I got that. But the triplet kind of thing. I mean, that's influenced by guitar players. When I was in high school, I used to hear this good guitar player play these triplets warming up. Let's see. What was the lick? He would warm up and play that stuff all the time. And I thought, man, wouldn't that be cool to try and figure out how to play that on the fiddle? And so that's kind of what got me into playing that kind of thing. And then Randy Howard, who I used to do a lot of contests with, he was the master, all that. I mean, he would throw that stuff in, and I think that's where I got a lot of that.
Oh, from his contest fiddling.
Randy Howard, yeah, not necessarily contest tunes, but if he was playing something like, well, I guess contest tunes, yeah, he'd play it in like Sally Gooden or I Don't Love Nobody or something like that. But yeah. Randy was great. A lot of people don't realize how good Randy Howard was,
Wow. And then that on your latest record with For Your Love, you have that long jam where you put in all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Where did all those come from?
Yeah, me, I guess. I guess I just tried to figure out the most complicated, out-of-the-way double stops and triplets I could play.
Yeah.
Throw them all in there. I don't know. But yeah, there's some Vassar influence in there. There's some Randy Howard. There's just a lot of... I guess that's a lot of my stuff, really.
Yeah, you were saying, well, you don't have that many of your own things, but I think you do. Actually.
I guess I do.
Yeah, I think you do.
I can ad lib with the best of them.
Yeah. So I did want to talk about your your latest stuff is definitely expanding sort of the range of things that you've been playing.
Yep.
So you talked a little bit about how some of that was inspired by playing with Bela. Can you talk a little bit about how that happened?
Well, I think the start of it was, oh man, this has probably been 8 or 9 years ago. I went to Merle Fest with a buddy of mine just to hang out. He was doing a songwriter thing there, and he ended up winning the Chris Austin Songwriter Contest that year. But we were watching all these shows, and I guess I was watching either Sam or Jerry, and it hit me that all the people that I look up to that are the most successful in bluegrass have done other things. And, they've always played bluegrass. They can definitely still play bluegrass with as good or better than anybody else, but they can also, they played, well, you think about Dell, he's played with Fish and Steve Earle and Preservation Hall Jazz Band, and Sam, all the stuff that he's done, and Jerry, and Bela's another one, Bela's played pretty much every kind of music and is always looking for new ways to push himself. But I think I was always into other styles of music, but I didn't know, there's a thing with bluegrass, and I'm as guilty of this as the next person, but you always hear about, oh man, so and so he's went away from bluegrass, he's abandoned bluegrass, and I never wanted, I'll always play bluegrass, no matter if I'm plugged in and playing with a rock band, playing with Bela Fleck, or playing with my band. Bluegrass is going to come out in my playing, regardless. But it took me a while to accept that, that it's okay to like more than bluegrass, and it's okay to want to play more than bluegrass. And I think that was the turning point for me, just seeing Sam and Jerry and Dell and all that they have done, and that they can still wear out some bluegrass, but they play other styles.
Yeah, so you felt that it was okay to do that. You weren't going to lose your bluegrass. Roots.
Yeah, and it was almost like I had to give myself permission to do it, because I am a traditional bluegrass guy, man. If I play bluegrass, I'm a stickler about, this song never was a trio, never did have a baritone part. This song is a trio, this song is a solo, and I'm the worst bluegrass Nazi you've ever seen when it comes to stuff like that. But at the same time, I was playing in a country rock band locally, and then I'll have to say, playing with that, and then I did a record with Andy Statman called Super String Theory with Andy and Tim O'Brien, and that was another one where, Andy, if you haven't heard him play, man, he is all out all the time, and just idea after idea, whether it be jazz or bluegrass or klezmer or whatever.
Right.
And so that really, I think, helped me to kind of get out there a little more.
Gave yourself permission.
Yeah.
And then you ended up co-writing a tune with Bela, right?
Yeah.
Tarnation.
We've co-written a few by now. We've been working on some fiddle banjo stuff. But yeah, that Tarnation, that came about. I was working on that Tall Fiddler album. I just asked him, I said, hey man, would you be... we had done a couple things before, but it was really way before that Bluegrass Heart thing started. But yeah, it's pretty wild. He's another one that when you write with him or when you play with him, it's just constant ideas. Like, well, what do you think of this? Okay, if you don't like this, try this. What do you think of, and it just be something totally different. You know, that's what I want to be able to do.
So did you go to that session with him with some ideas?
We had sent some stuff back and forth. Some ideas that we had. I asked him if he'd be interested in writing something together for the album, and he said yeah. And then we started sending ideas back and forth, and he came up with the slow part, you know. And I think I might have contributed a little bit to that, but most of that he had. And then I wrote the it's been so long since I played it, but the fast part, I wrote the first part of that for sure. And then a lot of it was just bouncing ideas back and forth.
Yeah, so how did it happen that you got asked to do the My Bluegrass Heart sessions?
Well, there was a documentary that two guys from Missouri were working on about me around 2017, I think. Maybe 2018 is when it come out, I don't remember. But, so they were working on this documentary, and they had interviewed the band and came to some shows and videoed a bunch. And they said, you know, we'd like to do something, you know, get you together with, you know, some people that you play with in Nashville, like, you know, Vince Gill, and traveling, Del McCurry, the whole Del McCurry band, and Sam Bush, and I don't think Jerry was there, Todd Phillips, but we did a bunch of videoing at Jeff's house. And then Jeff had played an Opry spot. Jeff White White is my producer, and Jeff plays in the Earls of Leicester with Jerry, and, you know, along with playing with Lyle Lovin, doing quite a few other things. But so Jeff and Jerry had played an Opry spot with Bela, and I think Jeff had mentioned to Bela that they were doing this filming thing at his house for me, and Bela said, you know, I don't really know him, but I'd be happy to go over and play or whatever. And so he did, and when we figured out he was actually going to be there, John Presley, one of the guys from the documentary that was producing it, said, you know, would there be any songs of Bela's that you could learn? And I said, yeah, you know. And so we went to Bela, and he sent a couple things, and I learned them. And so we played, and we played through these songs at the end of the jam, because pretty much after everything was over, we hadn't played these tunes yet. And I said, man, let's play one of these, you know. I was thinking, I learned them. Let's do it. So we played one of the tunes, and Bela said, man, I can't believe you learned that, you know. And I said, yeah, man, I mean, why not? And he said, do you like to learn tunes? I said, yeah, I do. And he said, well, I like to write some pretty complicated stuff. And I said, well, I'd be willing to give it a shot if you ever need anybody to play on something, you know. And he said, well, cool, I'll call you. And I didn't think anything about it. And then he did. He called and said, first of all, I think he had just the basic ideas of the tunes, and he wanted to get together with different people and to see which ones would fit each tune, you know, and that's why he had so many different people on the album.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the first time we got together was probably sometime in 2018, and then we recorded it. It was supposed to come out, I think, in 2020, and then COVID hit. So he mixed it all in 2020 and then put it out, you know, around the fall. about the time we went out for the first tour. It's been a great opportunity.
Yeah, and the stuff is so complicated. I know I had a great time with my son Jason. We would listen to that and try to figure out which fiddler was playing on which cut.
Oh yeah.
And we could definitely recognize you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was great. So you mentioned COVID. You know, COVID changed, or you know, was a pain, and it cut down touring and all. But a lot of musicians sort of took advantage of it in different ways. And so I'm wondering how you may have taken advantage of the COVID situation, being off tour and, you know, having some free time, so to speak. What did you do during that period?
Well, I walked on the treadmill. I learned how to use Pro Tools, and I played on a bunch of sessions at home. Which that was the thing that pretty much kept me sane during all that. That, you know, we weren't getting to play any music, but at least, you know, people were sending me tracks to play on, so I was still able to play every day, and you know, I was able to be home more, which I hadn't been since I was 18, and I mean, I got a routine after a while, you know. I get up and I work out, eat a salad, record whatever for the day, and that'd pretty much be it. But I was playing music, thankfully, because of all the tracks people had sent me to play. But it definitely changed my way of thinking as far as, you know, like what would you do, you know, if all this went away and you couldn't go out and play music anymore, you know, like it really made me stop and take a look at all that. But
yeah, well, luckily we're back at it.
Yeah, boy, I'm so glad.
Yeah. So Lovin' of the Game, where did that come from? Was that already in the works before COVID, or was that?
Oh, the album?
Yeah.
Well, it kind of was, you know. I knew I wanted to record again, and one of the tunes, well, actually two of the songs. There was one, the instrumental Contact, when once I got set up to record, and learn Pro Tools, which I was recording before that. I was doing sessions and playing them. I had an audio interface, and I would hook my iPhone up to it and record with an app similar to GarageBand, and I would do them that way, but you couldn't punch or fix anything. But so that song Contact, I sent, I think, the melody that I had that written for a while, but I sent it to Cody Kilby because I was thinking, man, you know, it'd be cool to try and record something to see how it would turn out, and you know, if things don't get back to normal, and you know, is this going to be a way that we can actually record? And so we started working on this thing, and it sounded so good. I asked Barry Bales to play bass on it, and Bela played banjo on it. So everybody played on it separately at home. When you listen to that track, you know, there was nobody playing together at the same time. Like we were everybody played on it from home.
Yeah, I would never have guessed that.
That just goes to show you how amazing technology is, you know.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever be better than being in a room and able to communicate and record together. But man, it's the next best thing.
Wow, yeah. So would you put like a click track down and you played to that, or?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's amazing. And how about some of the other tunes on that?
Sunny Days, that's another one that during the pandemic, the writer, Greg Poulos, reached out to me about playing on his version of that song, and he wanted me to play banjo, mandolin, and fiddle, and then I got Barry Bales to play bass on it, and we recorded his version. And I heard it, man, as soon as Sunny Days Are Coming Once Again. And it's a song written about, the time during the pandemic, and hoping to make it out of it. And I heard that song, and I knew that I wanted to record it, and it was a very relevant song for the time.
Yeah.
And, so Greg was nice enough to let me record it.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of variety on that record.
Thanks. Yeah, that's what we tried for, maybe more so on this album than some of my others. There's some different stuff on there.
Yeah. Really nice. You kind of feel that's sort of a direction you're going to be doing more of?
Yeah. I'll always play traditional bluegrass, and I don't want to ever lose sight of that. But I don't. The way the music's changing. I think it's cool to throw some other things in there. As long as you come back. It's like everybody. I've always heard all my life, it's fine to get on the limb, get out on the limb, as long as it doesn't break off, and if you can come back, if you can make it back.
Right.
Which most of the time we do.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that, I think that the workshop at Thomas Point, you were talking about the way you practiced and with a metronome and all. Can you talk a little bit about sort of your practice mode?
I don't really have a practice mode. I play a lot, but I don't really have a good practice routine per se. It's usually either, when I'm not playing out on the road, I'm at home playing on tracks that people have sent me. And so that really helps in playing different styles of music, because I play on everything. It's not just bluegrass. Matter of fact, I probably get less bluegrass to play on, surprisingly, than anything else. A lot of Americana, a lot of singer-songwriter, country, a lot of country stuff. But, it's very important to play with a metronome, and in the studio, you'll do a lot of that. You've got to stay on that click. But as far as a good practice routine or advice to give anybody, I really don't have one. I need one.
Yeah, you're talking about listening back to yourself, like recording.
That's
stuff.
the biggest thing. Okay, so when you record, and that was the thing that really. From the time I was a little kid, my grandma had a little tape recorder that they would take everywhere, and they would record. And so I got into recording everything, and that's the most honest critique you will ever get, when you record yourself, and it's the hardest thing to do. It's the most excruciating thing to, listen to yourself back, playing or singing or whatever. But if you really want to know what you need to work on, most of the time when you listen to yourself, you can tell. And that's been a huge thing, to be able to play something, especially in the studio. There's so many things to think about. It's like, oh yeah, I played a pretty good solo there, but was it with the click? Was it grooving with what else is going on, or not? There's so many details that you have to pay attention to. It's not only how you play, but how it feels within the track.
Yeah.
And
So you become your own critic.
Oh yeah, you have to be as a musician. You're your own worst critic.
Yeah, so you play stuff and you say, that's good, I'm not going to throw that away, or...
Yep. every day, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, it doesn't matter. Like I'll always, or sometimes I'll be guilty of thinking, yeah, I'll go down here and knock this out real quick. 4 hours later, I'll still be down there, you know, because yeah, you develop your ear and you start hearing these little nuances that you didn't notice before, and yeah, I try to get it as close to perfect as I can get it.
I guess last thing I should ask you about is your fiddle.
Yeah.
We talked about your bows, but yeah, maybe a fiddle, and what strings do you use?
Okay, this fiddle here is a John Silikowski 5-string. John passed away here recently, but he lived in Scottsburg, Indiana, which is about 10 miles from Henryville, Indiana, where I grew up, and it's pretty close to where I live now. But he built this fiddle in 1997, and he built it for a guy in Alaska whose name is Richard Gillardin, and Richard had sent John all the wood for this fiddle, and John put it together and had a few others that he brought over to my buddy Jeff Guernsey's house. And me and Jeff's also a good fiddle player. One of my biggest influences as far as playing music goes. But John brought this fiddle and a few others over, and we were playing on them. And I played this one, and immediately I said, John, I got to have this fiddle. And he said, well, I'm sorry, you can't have it. This is going to Richard Gillardin in Alaska, and he sent this wood specifically for me to build this fiddle, so it's not like I can send him another fiddle. And so I thought, I mean, we had a jam. I played that fiddle all day, you know. But then I heard that, and I thought, well, you know, there goes that. And he sent it to him, and it was my lucky day because he sent it back. He didn't like it.
Wow.
And so I got the fiddle. And I had played more of John's fiddles, you know. I'd had a few before that, but this one, man, I just keep. This is the main one. Like, I've got other fiddles that I play, but it's hard for me to get out of a lot of other fiddles what I can get out of this.
And
but not only is it a good 5-string, but it's a good fiddle. I think I'd play it if it was 4-string. It's not. I don't use the C string a ton. Like, I do use it, but I was always more of a fan of players who would sneak it in every once in a while. Like, you know, you'd be listening and you'd hear all this 4-string fiddle stuff, and then all of a sudden you'd hear a few low notes. And it's, oh man, you know, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
But as far as strings, I like Diodario Helicore Heavy Tension. They got medium tension too, but I think the heavies, I always thought they sounded a little better.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, I think it's funny what you say about the low string, because a lot of times I'll be listening to you and I'll forget you're playing a 5-string, and then all of a sudden you'll hit something down there. It's like, oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I always liked about Bobby Hicks, you know, like he'd sneak in there, or Johnny Gimbel. You know, you wouldn't hear him playing on the C string all the time, but when you did.
Yeah, it's like an extra special.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But, and I use Lonesome Pine rosin. I better get a plug in for Tad Marks, great fiddle player who came up with this rosin. He played with Bill McCurry years ago. And so I've been using that rosin.
What does it give you, a good grip? What do you like about that rosin?
Yeah, it's good. Especially, yeah, it grips well, and it doesn't seem like I have to rosin up every time. Like, it's definitely hangs in there.
Yeah. Nice. Well, okay, we should probably wrap up then.
All right.